We are privileged to work in higher education, and we are honored by the lives of the students that surround us every day.
You're listening to the CFL Podcast, where possibility is at work. Here, we explore what it means to empower learners, connect communities, create impact, and help Nevada thrive. Each episode shares stories and ideas from the people reimagining what learning can look like in our community and beyond. Because when we learn, build, and dream together, anything is possible.
Hi, welcome to the CFL Podcast. My name is Joe Kennedy, and I'm the Managing Director of Networked Learning for the Center for the Future of Learning. Today, I'm joined by Maggie Farrell, Dean of University Libraries for UNLV, and Ingrid Ruffin, Associate Dean and Division Director of Research and Education of University Libraries. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. One of the reasons that I was really excited to have you in the studio with us is because I wanted to explore, so often when we think about learning, we think about it in the context of the classroom. Mm-hmm. But we at CFL know that there are so many rich learning environments that happen outside of the classroom that support a learner's journey. Mm-hmm. And of course, as a member of the University Library Board as well, I've been really fortunate to have a window into the great work that the UNLV University Libraries do to support learners, and I wanted to bring that conversation onto the show. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, Joe. Especially this year, we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Lead Library, but we have 5 amazing libraries at the university, and they're open to the public, although our primary clientele, of course, are UNLV students and faculty.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'd love to start with just if you could tell me a little bit about your journey, about how you came into working in the libraries. Were you called into the work of libraries, or how did you end up in the library field?
Okay. I kind of ended up by accident, but looking back, hindsight being 2020, this was probably my life's call from the beginning. When I was a little girl, my friends and I, we'd play school, and we of course have a library in our school because every good school has one, and we would create a whole catalog. But in more recent time, my past actually started after I got out of the military. I went back to complete my undergraduate degree in English, and then my master's degree in English. And as I was thinking about becoming an English professor, one of the librarians who worked at my university library showed me a scholarship opportunity, and it's like, oh, you should become a librarian. And I was like, okay. And nobody, who wants to be a librarian? And I read the scholarship, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a pretty good deal, because I still really didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I started talking to librarians, and one of the faculty members that I met with said, libraries aren't about books, they're about people. And a part of my military service that I really enjoyed was the service and helping people and connecting people to different resources. And I was like, oh, I can do this. I can become a librarian and do the same thing without guns. So I became
I love that.
a librarian.
I love how you wove in the service aspect into the work as well, and that's something that I really connect with as well as an educator also. It's something that really called me into the classroom. Is there a way that the work has evolved for you, or a way that your view of working in a library has changed in working in service with students and others?
Well, I think, like every good college grad, I had an idea which was very much constrained to what I was being taught into the classroom. Yeah. And when I got out, I realized that not everybody was as excited about my subject material and area as I was. And so one of the things, and I would say probably helped me be successful in the field, is that I recognize it's about starting where people are and then taking them on a journey beyond what they thought possible. So it really is about helping people not only get what they think they want, but helping them see what they really want, and asking the right questions and engaging in imagination and kind of stretching them. And that has been a part of it. One of the best parts of it is that dawning realization of that what I thought I wanted could be so much more.
I love that. Thank you so much. Okay, Maggie, I don't want to lose you, too. I want to come back in. Tell me a little bit about how you came into the library world.
Well, my story is very similar to Ingrid's. I come from a family of educators, so a lot of teachers in my family. But I was also in the military, similar to Ingrid. And when I left the military and was going to university on the GI Bill, thank you very much, I worked in an academic library and saw how libraries were connecting the students to information resources, and decided then that I wanted to be a librarian because not only do I value learning, but I could see how within the libraries that lives were changed. Students were learning in addition to what they were learning in the classroom, and the difference higher education made, not only in individual lives, but the difference it makes for their families and certainly for our communities, for the future of society. So I believe strongly in education, and being a librarian helps me to advance that value that was instilled with me by my family.
That's wonderful. And thank you both, by the way, for your service, not only in the military, but of course, continuing service to the community. Thinking about libraries, one of the things that really struck me when I started engaging with the university libraries is how they've expanded so much beyond, I think, what our traditional view of a library might be, beyond a place that you maybe just go for studying or a place you go to find books. There's so many other services and resources that are provided at university libraries, and I think that's really grown in the last few years. I'd love if you could tell me a little bit about that journey and how you see the libraries at the university really expanding beyond that traditional role, if you will, of what a library might be to many of our listeners.
Well, I'm going to pick up where Ingrid left off, and that is information learning is more than books. So traditionally, we think about a library as a place of books, and certainly we have lots of books, both in print and electronic, but information is created and shared in a variety of formats. So that is through podcasts, through video, through making items, through acting, through music, through movies. So we want to make sure that at UNLV that our libraries provide that range of information resources, but also that students can create information, share information in a variety of formats. And I know Ingrid is anxious to talk about, well, maybe not anxious, but one of her areas of expertise is creating a variety of services and outreach that really touch on that mode of learning. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ingrid.
Yeah.
I will say, for me, it's more than just the objects, right? So every day, everybody, when I was in the classroom, I always tell people everything is data. So let's start there. Now we have to understand and translate, what does this data mean? What is it telling me? And helping people get over that hump of trying to apply their own understanding to the data as opposed to navigating and finding the truth that resides there. And so a lot of this is sort of like providing these different services, providing all of these different resources. It's another way for people to get information and for our students to not only get the information, not only to kind of translate it and navigate it, but also to get what they've learned out there. And so it's helping people to become critical thinkers and to not just passively engage with the world and not just accept the message, but also kind of integrate it, understand it, and disseminate it and become the people leading conversations.
Yeah, I love that. I really love the added piece about students, and learners getting to engage in what they're learning and get that out there, have a platform for that. Can you tell me what are some spaces at the UNLV libraries or some whether physical or virtual,
Yeah.
for students to do some things like that?
Well, one thing we have is we have our very own podcast studio. Famously, one of the student athletes, I believe he started, I can't remember his name right now, but he started his podcast there, and it has extremely high viewership. And he, I believe the Alumni Magazine did a story on him, and he gave a shout out to the library because that was one of the resources that helped him get his message and story out. We have makerspace where students can create and design. We also have a workshop series that helps student innovators or entrepreneurs kind of design and prototype their ideas so that they can go out and eventually hope get to market. We have a patent and trademark resource center, so that way once you've done all this, prototyping and come up with your idea, you can partner with a librarian and figure out, is this something that's viable? We also bring in lawyers. So to have workshops to talk about how somebody can go from their idea to market. So we have a lot in the traditional sense, but we also have, to give a shout out to my colleagues, but we also have a digital repository where once people publish their articles or go on presentations, they can put them online for the whole world to access and see. And we even have a metric so we can see what country is downloading this particular article so much. So we have a lot of avenues to help support students getting their message out there.
That's so cool. Some of those I didn't even know about myself. I had no idea that you do the patent and trademark workshop. That is incredible. That's really cool. Okay, for our listeners, in case they don't know, one of those that you mentioned was Makerspace, and I think this is one of the coolest spaces out there. Tell us a little bit more about it, just in case I'm like, what's Makerspace?
Okay. Well, the Makerspace is like the hub of our creative initiatives, I would say, in the libraries. We have, I want to say, well over close to 20 3D printers. Wow. We have sewing machines. We have paints. So if somebody wants to just come in and do a little paint project, they can do that. We have sticker printers, laser cutters, tools. So if you need to repair something, you can come in and fix it. Like one of my favorite necklaces, for years I couldn't wear it because it was broken. And one day I was like, I need a soldering iron. Where can I find a soldering iron? I don't have one at home. And I was like, oh, they're in the makerspace. And so I went down there, and one of our student workers, we worked together. We were watching YouTube videos, so we learned how to solder in order to repair this necklace. So it's real opportunity to learn skills, make mistakes in this space. So it's a lot.
I love that. That is one thing that I've noticed so much with our young learners right now, and I say young to include all the way up into college students, but that they really react to and enjoy hands-on learning experiences, trying things out. I think with the advent of YouTube, it's been such a huge shift in that there are so many. I mean, that's a great experience. That's a great example of something that I think I probably do at least once a week, which is, oh, I've got to fix something around my house. I have no idea how to do this. Oh, let me just see if there's a YouTube video on this. Do you also find in your field and in the library that you have a lot of young people that are approaching learning new skills in this way?
Well, I would say when we opened the makerspace with a variety of tools and so forth, we were like, how do we use all of these tools? And we didn't need to worry. We just hire a lot of student employees. They're smart, they're talented, they bring their energy to our spaces. Like, for instance, our new immersive learning initiative with our Dreamscape Learn and other virtual reality resources. The students know how to use it, so they teach us. So we benefit by having so many talented student employees who work in the libraries. But I would also say this all sounds like a lot of fun, a lot of games, and some of it is. But what sets us apart from just cool digital tools is that we connect it back to the curriculum. Yeah. So our librarians, who are faculty, work closely with the teaching faculty to integrate these resources into the curriculum. So it's not just come in and make a pair of earrings, but it could be a project specifically to a science class or an engineering class or an art class, or interpreting a play or making costumes for a play, for instance. So that's what sets us apart, is that it's not just a place of learning and a place where students can have a break from their studies or their work, but it's also a place that is closely tied to the courses at UNLV.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that distinction, because that is such an important distinction. And I love the thoughtfulness of how the library is an integrated support system for the curriculum that's taking place. Which is, I'm sure, no small feat with as many different majors as you have on campus, and that you're supporting learners all the way from the undergraduate to doctoral degree processes. Are there any major differences you notice as well between, you've got a lot of different groups that you're catering towards in terms of audience there. You've got undergrad students, you've got master's degree students, you've got doctoral degree students. How do those different kind of audiences interact with the library?
Well, I'll do a shout out for our terrific librarians. So our librarians are connected with the curriculum. First, we have subject liaisons that work specifically with the programs and the curriculum of those programs. So they are an important communication tool for us. And then they also develop specialized skills in supportive research as well as instruction. We also have an instruction team that works with our undergraduate students that focus on information literacy, critical thinking, which is so important as we enter more and more into technology and AI. We also have librarians who are functional specialists, so they specialize in data, how to collect data, how to publish research, how to find research, how to cite research. And then we also have librarians who work on organizing knowledge, and they create and organize, as you can imagine, well over millions of items that we have access to. We haven't talked about our special collections and archives, and our special collections and archives create primary resource or collect primary resource materials, documenting the history of primarily Nevada, but also those subjects that are unique to Nevada, such as gaming, sports entertainment. And our Oral History Research Center, that's part of our special collections, is collecting the stories of our community and make sure that we are preserving our history. And as you know, in Las Vegas, our history goes fast. So all of these areas are not only in support of UNLV and the courses we teach, but they also are looking at creating or documenting the history that we are living in today.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting was that I saw that there was an initiative through the library to actually make sure that the history that you're documenting, the local history, actually finds its way into searchable formats on web browsers so that it's shared with the whole world. I'd love if you'd tell us a little bit about that as well.
Sure. Yeah. So it's not only collecting the information and the history, but it's also making sure that others have access to it. So we have a very robust digitization program that will digitize archives, photographs, and other objects to make sure that we are preserving those in their original format, but also making it discoverable worldwide. So our metadata creation is contained on international databases, and we also create finding aids. But there are thousands and thousands of items that this will take years to make sure that we are documenting, but it is a very robust digitization program. And most of it is privately or grant funded, and we appreciate those donors and foundations that really support the work that we're doing and documenting the history of Las Vegas and the region.
I'd also like to add our special collections also goes out into the community to teach people how to preserve their family objects, how to record their stories, so that way their history can then be added to our collection. And I think through that program, we've actually added more stories from our local community, and that's one thing that our special collections does very well, is really being aggressive, because as Maggie said, the history in Las Vegas goes fast. And so you kind of have to almost cultivate these relationships before history is made in order to get the stories in time and preserve them for future researchers and generations.
I love that. And just another example of how, library and knowledge, it's so much more than books or something we're thinking about, that it's living people that have this lived experience here in our community, and making sure that we're capturing that and documenting that for others to benefit from and share. I love that. Thank you. Okay, I want to mention this is like a probably a good big conversation point. Maggie, you mentioned a buzzword right now in your last response, which was AI. But both Ingrid and Maggie, you've been really talking about how human-centered the work that you do is, and service-oriented the work that you do is. So I'd love to talk a little bit and explore, for someone on the outside, they might think, oh, synthesizing data, organizing data, wow, that's a job for AI, But everything I'm hearing, it's really rooted in being very human-centered and being very personalized. So how are you at the libraries thinking about this future, about where the lines are between what's a way to use AI, but what's a human-centered approach, and how do you balance those things?
Well, I'll start with that. So, as Maggie mentioned, we also now have a immersive learning program. And core to that is not only making sure that our students get access to this technology to use to learn on, but also to become creators, because the future is going to be given to the people who can create and craft these stories and make these realities. And we want UNLV students to be at the top of that. And to be the leaders in that. And so part of that is making sure that our students have the skills to navigate these spaces with critical thinking, with integrity, and with care, and also to be at the forefront of crafting the stories that people are being told and being shared across the globe.
I love that.
I would also add, Joe, that part of our instruction program has always been about information literacy and critical thinking. So even back in the days of print, and for those in the audience that remember all those paper indexes that are now digitized, we had to teach individuals what resources to use, how to use those resources, and then how to interpret and apply the information. So then the internet happens, and people are like, well, then libraries will go away. Everything's on the internet, which we know that's not true. And again, libraries adjusted our instruction so that we were teaching students. And this is the reason why our instruction program at UNLV is so critical. We want students to be able to find information, evaluate it, apply it, and think critically about the resources that they are consulting. It helps them in their academic career, but it also helps them in their professional and personal lives. The same is true for AI. So we work with students to evaluate the resources. Where is the AI response coming from? What is the resource? Is that a trusted resource? And to do a little bit of investigation so that they can assess and apply that information as they need. But the other aspect that libraries are involved in, and we talked about this, and that is contributing knowledge to global information. That is the reason why it's so important for us to also create information, quality information, and make sure that it is discoverable. So it's that old adage of garbage in, garbage out. So we also want to make sure that AI is picking up reliable, trusted resources, and we include the information that we make available to the world as part of that trusted resource that, that AI will consult.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that really strikes me too is that, the library, it's a hub of activity on campus. Every time I'm on campus, there's so much going on at the library. And, learning, I think we probably all experienced during the COVID years that, learning when it's all virtual or when it's, very, come in, do a class, get out, it can feel more limited or transactional, maybe even in nature. But learning is something I think is best when it's exploratory, it's joyous, it's
holistic.
Holistic, yeah. And so, what to your end is you think the importance of having a space like the library, like libraries, both on campus at UNLV, but just in general in the community, to be a space where people can go for learning outside of a school or a classroom.
Well, we do take quite the holistic approach. As Maggie noted, we have subject area specialists who go into the classroom and who partner and pair with faculty to develop curriculum to teach information literacy skills. But we also have workshops that help integrate those skills into students' lives and on a personal level. A lot of people may take issue with, learning centered around identity, but we all have an identity, right? And that can be the potential to gateway to a lot of other things. And we none of us start at the same place in life, and allowing students safe places where they can have discussions with people who are kind of in that same spot, but also partner and pair with librarians, with instructors who can help elevate the conversation and take them a little further. I always like to say UNLV, it's a great place for students who want to go someplace else, right? It respects who they are when they come to us, but also a part of our mission is taking them to where they want to be, and sometimes well beyond that. And so we have a lot of our resources and the programming that we do is to bring people together, and anyone is welcome, but more specifically just to make sure that no matter where you start, your finish is in your hands, and we're providing you with the space to think about it, to investigate it safely and comfortably with other people, to be challenged in that space, but more importantly, just to be able to expand their lived experience into something more.
Yeah, that's great.
Hopefully that answers.
No, that's wonderful. I am really excited about this conversation, and I'm really glad that we're here talking about this because again, I think so many, I know myself, certainly before I even got involved with university libraries, I think have a very one-dimensional view of a library, and kind of what's there, and don't realize all of the incredible different things that are going on. So if I, were listening to this podcast, and maybe I'm not someone who regularly goes to a library or knows anything about the library at the university, what's like the one big takeaway you want me to have about the role that the library plays beyond what we all think of a library?
Well, Joe, I would say this applies to UNLV, but also to the great public libraries throughout the state of Nevada, and that is the libraries are really a hub for the community, and they are responsive to the community. So what you will find at UNLV is directly in support of what UNLV students want and need. So the spaces are varied group spaces, individual spaces, quiet spaces, noisy, loud spaces, coffee shops, and so forth. Because we're trying to provide a variety of learning environments that support our students. But if you also go to one of the public libraries, you'll find the same. It may look different. The new library on the west side will look different from a library in Henderson because it reflects the community needs. And that is what libraries are about these days, that they support the community. But regardless of what's in a library or how one library might differ from another, the values remain constant. They are places where you can come, explore, ask questions, learn new items, and you can do it in a space that does not judge you and provides a variety of perspectives and resources and is really there to serve their communities. So we all work really well together in Nevada, our libraries do. Even though we might look different or we might have different services, at the end of the day, it's all about what does our community need and how can we provide that to the best of our abilities.
Thank you so much.
And I'd like to jump off something that Maggie said about libraries being a hub. It really is about connecting with yourself, connecting with others, connecting with the world, connecting with history. And in that space, it's via those connections that we all grow and that we all learn and that we can make sense of everything that's going on. The world can be a scary place no matter what time and a point in history that you're living in. And the libraries can be that connection through line between who you are right now, the past, and the future that we all hope for ourselves. And so, yeah.
Joe, we've been talking a lot about technology, but we haven't talked too much about those learning spaces and the group areas. And certainly speaking to any one of the libraries at UNLV, you will see a lot of technology in place. But I think what would strike individuals when they come in is to see how groups are working together and how they collaborate. And although we have lots of amazing technology, you can check out a headset, you can check out a laptop. Do you need a charger? We have that. A specialized calculator, we have all of that. But at the end of the day, when you're looking around the library, you'll see one of our most popular technology tools, and that is the whiteboard. Because learning often happens in groups, and we'll see individuals using the whiteboard to draw out these long mathematical equations that I don't understand, or a group collaborating on a project centered around the whiteboard. So back to an earlier point that Ingrid made, it's all about the students and the students working together, and the technology facilitates a lot of learning and a lot of knowledge transfer. But at the end of the day, it's really about the students who are working together, learning from each other, sharing, or maybe having lunch or playing a computer game, a little bit of downtime in between their busy schedules, and probably a workload on top of that as well.
Thank you. And building on that, and you kind of touched on it earlier as well too when you were explaining all the different types and styles of learning environments that are available within the library system, the university library system. But how do you go about intentionally designing experiences and environments that give learners more agency, whether that's through access to specific tools or specific types of environments, or different services that you provide?
Yes. So I jokingly will say that sometimes my job feels like I'm a one-woman complaint department, because more often than not, if someone has an issue in the libraries, I get to hear about it. And no matter how the message is delivered to me, I try to take it seriously and to heart, because I know that it's coming from a very real place for whoever's telling me what their issue is. And so a lot of it starts with that initial feedback of a bad experience or misunderstanding about the libraries. And so a lot of times, some of the problem solving comes just from having conversations with our learners, as you say, and our faculty members. But also, our librarians are researchers, right? So we are staying ahead of a lot of the things that are happening and going on in the world, and attempting to address these, even as these worlds are unfolding. Like going back to the whole AI thing, we're paying attention to the research. We're paying attention to the news articles, so that way, by the time it gets into the hands of our learner, we've already kind of mapped out a pathway, or at least at minimum started thinking of a way through this. And so a lot of this is just about us constantly just being engaged and not being afraid to have hard conversations with people and figuring out what's going on. And I always like to say, it's sort of like, if I don't know how to do it, if someone else doesn't know how to do it, we know how to find the people who do, and making sure that even as we hear the concerns, we're putting our learners in the best position possible and doing that handover to the other experts in the different fields.
I love this. And Ingrid, can you tell me, was there a time that you can think of where a piece of feedback from a learner caused you to maybe rethink or, adapt the way that you were, delivering a service or a space or a program within the library?
Okay, this is controversial, but for the health and safety of our community, we don't allow sleeping in the libraries.
Oh, yeah.
And my poor empathetic heart is like, I get it. A lot of our students are working multiple hours a day. They're dealing with families. Then on top of that, they have to come to campus, deal with parking. Maybe they haven't eaten all day, and all they want to do is take a little 10-minute cat nap. And sometimes, and we've had in the past, certain staff members not understanding how to approach these situations with empathy. And I did receive a message from a student who felt like they were being shamed when they were approached about it. And really, I took it to heart, and then took it to my staff and was like, look, we have this policy for a very good reason, because we don't want someone to be having a health crisis or different situations. We just want to check on people. But how about we approach it with a little bit more care and sensitivity about it? And I haven't heard any reports recently about, my staff doing that. But I really did kind of take it to heart. Some people go, well, they're violating a policy. Well, you know what? I care about people more than I care about policy. And because people create policy, sometimes they can be flawed or may not address larger overarching issues. Yeah. So it's really about making sure that people's humanity is respected and preserved no matter what.
Thank you. And again, that goes back to where you started, as the service aspect of the work that you guys do at the libraries. So thank you. I love that. I've been guilty of a library catnap at some point in my college career.
Yeah, right. And there's a way to approach that. Yeah. And also sometimes there might be some other underlying issues, and so one of the things that I encourage my staff to do is find out the resources, because it really could be that particular student or that patron from who's coming off the street. It's a cool place. It's an oasis in the desert. They might need something. Yeah. So let's figure out what resources we can provide them or direct them to in order to make sure that they are still being treated with dignity and humanity.
Yeah, that's great. One question I have, and going back to some themes we've been touching on, which is that, the world looks so different for folks today than it did when I was in college, certainly. And they have so much more information available at their fingertips. They don't even have to, sit down at a laptop. They can just pull out their phone and pull up a ton of information. With that in mind, how how is the expectation, or maybe some of the use, or what you're seeing from younger learners or undergraduate learners? How is their expectation of what the need for a library is maybe different than how it might have been, say, when I was a student, or when you might have been undergrad students?
It's certainly different than when I was a student, Joe. But I would say that we often think, or we'll hear, well, libraries are outdated. Everything is on the internet. Everything is free on the internet. But we know that that isn't true. We know that quality information, research information comes at a cost. And so we strive at UNLV to provide a rich information environment for our students. And some of that means that we are purchasing print books, but our electronic book collection, which right now is about 1.8 million electronic books and over 900 databases, that most of that comes at a pretty high cost. But it is our goal to make sure that we are exposing our students and our faculty to curriculum material and research materials that really help them in their academic pursuits. So a big part of our job is also behind the scenes. So we haven't talked much about what we do behind the scenes to make that access seamless and available for our students. So often many of our faculty members will say, well, I haven't been in the library in a couple of years. And our response is, that's fine. You don't need to physically come to the library, but are you finding the information that you need for your teaching, for your research? And they're like, yes, your website is terrific. I find everything. Well, to make that seamless online space possible, we have a team of librarians and technologists who are working to make sure that it's accessible, that it's connected, so that when you do a search online and you find, let's say, the book that you need for your research, and you're looking at the footnotes, and it leads you to an article that you seamlessly pass from that book to the article, and if we don't own it, then you're passed through to our interlibrary loan and it's delivered to your desktop. So a lot of the work that we do is to try and make that as easy as possible for our students and our faculty so that they find the information that they need, whether that's in person or whether it's online. And then we know it's a confusing environment out there, so we have reference assistants, we have great individuals at our circulation desk, and then we also have online email and chat services so that you're just a connection away from finding the help that you need, and we're there for you.
I love that.
Yeah, and I'll just give, I think Maggie answered the question well, but I'll just give a good example of how, as pervasive as the internet seems, everything is not there. Yeah. So a couple of years ago, when I was working at a library, one of my friends who's an engineer said, Ingrid, there's a book in your collection that I cannot find anywhere else in the world. It's not digitized. And it was critical to a court case that I won't. Yeah. And so this person needed this particular page out of this book in order to support his findings as an expert. And I always use that as a critical, as an example of just because everything seems like it's there, it doesn't mean that it is. And while I'm always a person to encourage people to trust their own mind, I would say verify. Trust but verify, and that and partnering with libraries and partnering with our resources, what will more than likely happen is that a whole world is going to unfold that you didn't even realize it's there.
Ingrid, thinking about the future, what gives you the most optimism for the future of learning?
For the future of learning. So, oddly enough, it is the past, because human beings have been through a lot. And if we think about the history of the United States of America, the one thing that human beings do well is survive and thrive in some of the craziest, wildest circumstances that you can imagine. I was talking to one of my colleagues last week about, my experience in war zones, my experience in going into other countries to support their development at different points of my life. And one of the things that I'm always amazed at is humanity's resilience. And in the face of everything, we still choose to love, we still choose to connect, we still choose to gather, even when it feels insurmountable. We still have joy, we still dance, we still sing. And to some people, that means that, they're enjoying this experience, but no, that's how humans survive. And through all of this, our students are still laughing. Our students are still falling over each other over the silliest things, in laughter. And sometimes I'll catch them doing something and we kind of, I have to keep a straight face because I'm just like, you really shouldn't be doing this. But they're still, being hilarious. And that's my optimism for the future, is that humans, above everything, we're survivors, we're thrivers. And I'm always amazed at that.
Thank you. Maggie, how about for you? What gives you the most optimism for the future of learning today?
Well, it is our students, which our students are inspiring. The UNLV students, they come with dedication and with specific goals. And those goals are to improve their lives, to seek and build careers, but it also is about improving their families' lives. And ultimately, it's about improving our community and our society through education. Our students, and we're so fortunate, we have about 120 students at any given time working in one of our 5 libraries. And they come to work and they have optimism, they're energetic, they're dedicated, they're stressed, they're focused on their future. They are also, how do I make my pay stretch? How do I get a scholarship? How do I support my family? How do I help my younger brothers and sisters, perhaps? But they are so filled with hope. And when they come to the workplace and when we see them in our facilities, they are, as Ingrid noted, they are laughing, they're together, they connect with each other. And so I have a lot of optimism for our future because it's based on the energy and the skills that our students bring to UNLV every day. I am so privileged, and I know Ingrid and everyone at UNLV Libraries would say this. We are privileged to work in higher education, and we are honored by the lives of the students that surround us every day.
One of the things for me that brings up too is when I was doing some research in the process of my master's, I remember, of course, the internet, search engines, AI, all very helpful in finding resources sometimes, but they also are working within the realm of algorithms, and so a lot of times they're bringing up what's very similar to what you've already found or what's maybe most widely available or widely known. And then when I, for instance, was looking for something very niche, very specific, it was going in and actually talking to a librarian and saying, hey, I'm looking, do you know of something like this? And the quality and the kind of specificity of the resources that I found for my particular research topic were so much better than anything I had found. I see you both nodding, both of them, tell me more about if this is a common thing. And then again, on that theme of what libraries do. That
part of what I miss about working research assistants and being in a classroom is that sometimes I would would seem like a wizard. And for me, it would be just something I was like, oh, did you think of this? And students are like, how do you know this? It's like, because I read, because I research, because this is my job, literally. And getting people to understand that there are limits to all of our knowledge, right? So even I, as a librarian, if I have a hard question, I go find my colleagues within the library to go, hey, do you know anything about this? And there never fails to be someone who is like, oh, yeah, I was just thinking about this the other day. All you need to do is X, X, Y, maybe change your language on this. Did you try this? Changing your wording or your thought pattern, or providing a really good research interview, which a lot of times, again, people come to me and they say, I want this book that proves my fact. And I always say, well, I know you want this thing that proves your fact, but actually, let me help you find the information, because that might improve the questions that you're asking and even how you're thinking about the topic. Because, humans, we only know what we know. We all have a very... Our experience is kind of closed within us. And part of my job as a librarian, part of my colleague's job is to help us add to your individual experience with the experience of a millennia of knowledge that we have accessible to us.
I love that. Yeah. Great. Okay, here at the Center for the Future of Learning, when we talk about the future of learning, we're really talking about learning practices that are future ready, which are things that kind of help students, young people, be prepared for this world that we're in that's rapidly evolving consistently, as well as learning practices that are learner-centered. So things that are really individualized and tailored to the unique needs and wants of each learner. As you think about the future of UNLV Libraries, how do those themes come up for you? Are there some themes in your work that you see as being really, future-ready or learner-centered?
Yeah, I can always go.
Yeah.
I always put people at the center of it. People are at the center of the future. We are moving and cycling through technology at a very fast clip, but that's also been the history of humanity, right? The first time somebody brought a wheel out, I'm sure everybody was like, what? I remember in graduate school learning how even literacy was this controversial thing of people being able to read text and having the power to read. And then the scuffle and the controversy around the telephone. Like, there's a lot of things now that we use today that we just take it for granted. Oh, telephone, just... See, and when I'm thinking about the telephone, I'm thinking about what's plugged into a wall. and so, and kids today, we talk about the telephone that's in our hand that we walk around in our pocket. And it's sort of like human beings, we just keep repeating the same cycles. But at the end of the day, it's us who needs to change. It's not necessarily the technology, but it's our relationship to the technology, and it's our relationship to each other. And so, when I became a librarian, that's the first thing that kind of struck me, is the need for humanity, the need for connection, the need to know other people in order for all of this information and technology to kind of make sense.
That's such a beautiful point. Great.
Anything you want to add, Maggie?
That was so well said.
Yeah.
And I think as you've heard us talk about spaces or technology or services, that you see what's weaved through all of it is how do we interact with students, support students, advance students. That's at the heart of everything that we do. The spaces that we have are created with students in mind. The collections that we build, again, are connected to what the teaching faculty need for their courses. When we think about documenting the history of Las Vegas and the area, again, it's about connecting the past to our future. When we think about the technology and the infrastructure, it's how do we make all of this stuff work and work well for our students and faculty and staff. So everything that we do revolves around the human connection that Ingrid has articulated so well.
Yeah, so true. Thank you. Well, Maggie, Ingrid, I think that was an incredible, I think that was knocking it out, a great closing us out. Thank you so much for being here today and for this conversation. I'm really excited to share this with the community and share this with folks because you guys do incredible work to connect our community, to serve our community, to create really engaging learning spaces outside of the classroom. And so I'm really glad we got a chance to put a spotlight on that today.
Thank you for having us today, Joe.
Yeah, thanks
you.
so much.
You're listening to the CFL Podcast, where possibility is at work. Here, we explore what it means to empower learners, connect communities, create impact, and help Nevada thrive. Each episode shares stories and ideas from the people reimagining what learning can look like in our community and beyond. Because when we learn, build, and dream together, anything is possible.